Hey, let me ask you something real. Have you ever sat across from a woman, looked her in the eyes, and wanted to ask, what happened to you? Not out of judgment, but because you could sense something behind her smile, a sadness, a wall, a history. And like most men, you probably made the mistake of asking directly, did he hurt you? Why did it end? How many guys before me? But here's the truth. When you ask, she shields. She edits her story. She protects her image. Not because she's dishonest, but because she's trying to feel safe. So what do you do? How do you understand her past without pressuring her to reveal it? Simple. You observe. Because the truth isn't always in her words. It's in the silence between them. It's how her body tenses when a song plays. It's how her eyes drop when you mention trust. It's the way she over-explains or avoids certain topics altogether. A woman's past isn't revealed through interrogation. It's revealed through patience, through presence, through emotional intelligence. So if you truly want to know her, don't ask, don't press. Just be still enough to hear what she's not saying, because the man who can listen without needing answers, that's the man she'll eventually tell everything to. Let's talk about attention, not yours, hers. Because how a woman responds to attention, especially from men, tells you more about her pace than any story she'll ever share. Some women crave it, not because they're shallow, not because they're vain, but because somewhere in their timeline, they were invisible. Maybe she gave everything to someone, and he barely looked up from his phone. Maybe she was faithful, loyal, kind, and still ended up abandoned. So now, every like, every comment, every swipe, it becomes proof she still matters. Proof she's seen. Proof she hasn't been forgotten. This isn't about the picture. It's not about whether she posts something sexy. It's about what's driving the post. The real question is never, why is she showing that much skin? The real question is, why does she need that much validation? See, the woman who's healed, she doesn't reject attention, but she doesn't depend on it either. She knows who she is, even when the room is silent, even when the phone is dry, even when no one claps. But the woman who's still bleeding, she might not ask for help, but her relationship with attention is a whisper from her past. And as a man, it's not your job to fix her, but it is your responsibility to see clearly, to respond with presence, not ego. Because the man who sees beyond the performance, the man who doesn't chase, doesn't shame, doesn't compete with the crowd, that man is different, and different is what she remembers. You want to know what really reveals a woman's emotional landscape? It's not how she talks about you, it's how she talks about other women. Pay attention. A woman who is peaceful within herself doesn't feel the need to compete to feel significant. She doesn't cut others down to lift herself up. But when you hear things like, she's so fake, everything on her is probably surgery. She's not as sweet as she pretends to be. That's not judgment. That's wound speaking. It's the voice of old insecurity, of battles fought in silent competition. Maybe she was once the friend who gave too much and got stabbed in the back. Maybe she grew up being compared, overlooked, or underestimated. And now, that subtle bitterness, that's how she builds walls before anyone else can hurt her again. Here's what most men miss. A woman who is still healing tends to judge. A woman who has healed tends to understand. When a woman is secure in herself, she doesn't need to tear others down. She can admire beauty without feeling threatened. She can hear another woman's success and not feel like it takes anything away from her own. Because real confidence is quiet. It doesn't compete. It simply is. So what does this mean for you? It means you don't need to fix her. You don't need to confront her. You just need to see her clearly. and understand that the way she speaks about others is often a mirror of how she feels about herself. And when you see that, you stop reacting, you stop trying to correct, you simply hold space, because in that space, she might start seeing herself differently too. If you really want to know a woman, don't watch her when everything's going right. Watch her when things go wrong. When there's tension, does she go silent and pull away? Does she get angry, lose control, say things to hurt? Or does she turn to blame, get defensive, and shut down emotionally? These reactions, they're not random. They're survival patterns shaped by unhealed pain from the past. Maybe she grew up in a household where conflict meant chaos, so now silence feels like safety. Maybe she was betrayed, and now every disagreement feels like she's about to be abandoned again. Not because of you, but because the past still lives in her nervous system. A woman who's still wounded often fights to protect herself, but a woman who's healed can sit in discomfort without destroying connection. So what do? You're not her therapist. You're not there to fix her. But you can recognize something important. A reaction is not her true self. It's a reflection of what she's had to survive. And if you can stay grounded in those moments, if you don't flinch or escalate, you become something rare in her life. A safe place. A place where healing doesn't feel forced, but naturally begins. When you start getting to know a woman, you don't need to ask, "So, who was your ex?" You don't have to dig up her past with direct questions. Because the truth is, the most important stories are often hidden in what she doesn't say. Listen closely when she talks about places she's been, when she says, "Back then, we used to come here." Who is we? What kind of relationship still lingers behind that word? Or when she quietly says, "After everything fell apart." That phrase carries emotion. And sometimes, just that one sentence is enough to tell you there was an emotional earthquake somewhere in her heart. But here's the deeper insight. What she doesn't mention matters even more. Some chapters are skipped entirely, not because she forgot, but because she's not ready to remember. Silence is often how memory protects itself from pain. And if you're still enough, if you're grounded enough not to interrupt, you'll start to hear the quiet parts. Not to judge, not to control, but to understand, to respect what hasn't yet found words. Because a wise man doesn't just listen with his ears. He listens with his attention, with quiet observation, with space. Space for her to be who she is now. Even if she's still learning to make peace with who she was then. There's a phrase you've probably heard before: men are trash. Men only care about one thing. It sounds like a joke, but if you pay attention to how she says it and how often she repeats it, you'll realize it's not humor, it's history. It's not sarcasm, it's self-protection. When a woman says that with a half smile, with her eyes looking away, with a tone that tries too hard to be casual, what she's really saying is, "I've been let down more than once," because no woman wakes up one day and decides to hate men. It happens slowly, through disappointment, through betrayal, through giving too much to someone who gave too little. And over time, her trust doesn't disappear, it hardens. It twists from, "I haven't met the right man yet," to "all men are the same." And here's the danger. If she still holds that belief, she won't just see you, she'll see her pass through you. She'll wait for you to mess up, not because she wants it, but because part of her expects it. Now the question is this: can you stay grounded when someone projects old wounds onto new love? Can you offer stability without trying to prove your worth? Can you be the man who's solid, even if her trust is still shaking? Because a stoic man doesn't rush to defend his ego. He doesn't try to change her story with words. He becomes the quiet space where she might finally write a new one. You don't have to ask her, "How was your childhood? What's your relationship with your parents like?" You just have to listen to the casual moments, to the little slips in conversation, especially when she mentions her father. If she says, "Yeah, my dad was around, kind of. He worked a lot. I got used to it. Let's not talk about him." Pay attention, because what sounds like indifference is often buried disappointment. A woman rarely becomes cold for no reason. She once hoped, she once looked up to him, and when that trust cracked, she learned to shut the door quietly but firmly. A father isn't just a figure in the background. For a daughter, he is her first definition of what a man means. He shapes her expectations. He teaches directly or indirectly what love, safety, and presence should feel like. So when that relationship is fractured, it doesn't just end there. It bleeds into her romantic life. She starts looking for men who feel familiar. Even if that familiarity is pain, she gravitates toward the cold, the unavailable, the ones she has to earn love from. And here's the tragic part. Even if you are kind, present, and different, she might not know how to receive it, because absence has become her comfort zone. And sadly, the pain we know often feels safer than the love we don't. So if you see this pattern, don't try to fix her. Don't chase healing for her. Just stay grounded. Be a calm presence, not a savior. Sometimes, all a wounded heart needs is proof that love can stay even when trust hesitates. You want to know what she's been through? Don't ask. Just watch how she responds to the world. Some people cry at a movie scene. Some go quiet. Some don't feel anything at all. A song that stirs your soul might leave her completely untouched. Her reactions, or lack of them, aren't random. They're clues. Clues about what she's survived and what she's still carrying silently. If she goes silent when someone else is in pain, it doesn't always mean she lacks empathy. Sometimes it means she's had to turn off her feelings just to make it through. At some point, emotions became dangerous. Feeling too much meant hurting too deeply, so she shut it down. And when you do that for long enough, your heart forgets how to turn back on. She isn't cold. She's cautious. She isn't broken. She's protected. And your role, it's not to fix her. It's not to force tears, laughter, or emotional displays. It's to wait, to be present, to stay. Even when her silence makes you uncomfortable, sometimes the most healing thing you can offer isn't a clever phrase or grand gesture. It's your stillness, your non-judgment, your quiet "I'm here," even when she doesn't know how to say thank you, because for someone who's had to survive by feeling nothing, learning to feel again starts with knowing that love won't leave when she can't show it back yet. A wise man doesn't sit across the table, lean in, and grill her like he's a detective. Who was your ex? Do you still love him? Why didn't you tell me this earlier? Questions like these don't lead to truth. They build walls. A grounded man knows the less you speak, the more you see, because the truth isn't in what she says. It's in the flicker of her eyes when you mention a place. It's in the pause before she answers. It's in that smile that fades too quickly. She might say, "I'm fine," but her hands tighten around the glass. She might laugh, but her foot taps nervously beneath the table. The body speaks what the mouth can't, and a man who sees this doesn't rush to judge. He doesn't interrupt silence just to fill space. He learns to listen to what's not said, to notice what others miss, and most importantly, he doesn't seek truth to control her, but to understand her. Maybe what she's hiding isn't a dark past, but the fear that if she ever told you, you wouldn't stay. And maybe, just maybe, if you're the one man who watches without pressure, waits without pushing, and stays without demanding, you'll be the first man she ever tells the whole story to. Sometimes, what she doesn't say comes through loudest in what she won't eat. You might think it's just food, but often it's a language. Acute, subconscious language born from experience. When a woman always chooses safe meals, double-checks ingredients, hesitates around shared plates in social settings, it's not just about health. It could be about control, something she didn't have much of growing up. Maybe her body wasn't always hers to protect. Maybe her no was ignored one too many times. So food became the last thing she could say yes or no to. A quiet space where she could feel safe. A space where she didn't have to explain, apologize, or defend. And your role isn't to question. It's not to fix or interpret. It's to notice and respect. Don't ask, "Why won't you eat that?" Just be there, still and grounded. The kind of man who makes her feel like she can take the armor off. Because healing doesn't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it begins at the dinner table, with silence, presence, and the soft power of being understood. Have you ever noticed how she reacts when you're kind to her? You hold the door. She gives an awkward smile. You bring her a thoughtful gift. She says, "You didn't have to do that." Sometimes, all you do is listen, and she looks at you like you've done something huge. Why? Why does something so normal make her so uncomfortable? Because for her, kindness was never normal. She's been in relationships where love came with conditions. They gave to get. They cared to control. They loved to possess. So now, when you show up without demand, without expectation, she doesn't know what to do with it. Not because she doesn't appreciate you, not because she's playing games, but because her defense mechanism speaks before her heart can, and it says, "Be careful. Kindness might be a trap." This is when a stoic man makes his real choice. Do not retreat. Do not take her guarding personally. Just stay still, steady, grounded. Because for someone who's been deeply hurt, steady kindness is something they don't know how to trust yet. They have to relearn how to receive. And you might be the first man who teaches her that kindness doesn't always come with a cost. There comes a moment in every man's growth when he realizes women are not what they say. They are what they show when they think you're not watching. When you truly observe, you notice how she sits when the room goes quiet, how she breathes when talking about her family, how she breaks eye contact just before saying, "I'm fine." You stop listening to her highlight reel, and instead, you begin to see the spaces she skips over, the pauses, the guarded laughs, the over-explained stories. Because sometimes the truth isn't in her words, it's in her silence, in her body, in her timing. A grounded man doesn't ask, "So what happened in your past?" He quietly notices how she receives affection, how she responds to disappointment, how she smiles when she's hurting, and most importantly, he doesn't demand answers. He doesn't press for the full story. Because pain doesn't open under pressure. It opens slowly, in safe spaces, in stillness, in the presence of a man who doesn't need to fix her, just see her. And that, my friend, is when you stop chasing words and start holding space for something real.